Imagine that. Deep in your abdomen. Now there is a silent hidden bomb. It's not soft meat that you can pinch, not the little belly that makes you frown in the mirror. It goes deeper, tightly wrapped around your liver, pancreas, intestines, and around the heart, like a layer of stubborn yellow armor. Wrap your internal organs tightly, medically. It has its own name, visceral fat. And now you're fasting. You've been holding on for weeks. Eat only during the 8-hour window every day, no water for the remaining 16 hours. The numbers on the scale did move. 2 kilograms are missing, 3 kilograms, even 5 kilograms, do you think? I'm destroying that invisible bomb bit by bit. But here's a shocking truth that most people don't know. You lost it. It's probably not visceral fat at all. And here's what's even crueler. If you're fasting the wrong way, your body not only doesn't burn visceral fat, instead it will initiate a sophisticated self-protection program. Lock visceral fat tighter while quietly breaking down your hard-earned muscles. Wait until you finish fasting. Weight rebound. Visceral fat increases rather than decreases. You think your willpower is not strong enough. It's not your fault. It's your response to visceral fat. Don't know enough. Today we're going to look at the cellular level, at the hormonal level. Start with the lowest level of metabolic logic in your body. Thoroughly understand one thing. What is visceral fat? Why is it so hard to kill? Why does ordinary fasting have limited effect on it? Even counterproductive. It's scientifically proven. The ultimate weapon that can precisely target visceral fat. What is it? Are you ready? We learn from your body. The most hidden secret begins to emerge. In your body. In fact, there are two completely different kinds of people living there. The first type of fat is subcutaneous fat. It's something you can squeeze with your hands, those soft meat, distributed directly under the skin, thighs, hips, arms, it's even on the cheek. Although subcutaneous fat bothers many people, but from a medical perspective, it's actually a relatively mild form of fat. Its main job is to store energy, maintain body temperature, buffer external impact, like a natural thermal lining, stay under the skin, stay out of trouble. The second is visceral fat. Its character is completely different. It can even be dangerous. Visceral fat is dishonest. It is unwilling to be just a quiet energy warehouse. It's a highly active endocrine organ. Every moment are releasing various chemical signals into your bloodstream. It secretes things called cytokines, inflammatory substances. When a troublemaker keeps pressing the alarm button, persistent inside your body, create low-grade chronic inflammation. This inflammation doesn't give you a fever, it won't hurt, but it will quietly corrode your blood vessel walls, interfere with your insulin signal, disrupt your blood pressure regulation system. It gradually pushes you towards diabetes and cardiovascular disease, fatty liver, and even some types of cancer. This is from Harvard Medical School. The accumulation of visceral fat is associated with an increased risk of heart disease. There is a direct positive correlation, even if a person's weight is within the normal range. As long as the visceral fat exceeds the standard, his metabolic health risk increases significantly. This is why the medical community considers visceral fat excessive. It's called the metabolic syndrome. What's even more disturbing is visceral fat has an extremely tricky property. It's invisible. You stand in front of the mirror. Maybe you think your stomach is okay, that big, but the accumulation of visceral fat doesn't necessarily make your abdomen protrude significantly, especially in the early stages. It is hidden deep in the abdominal cavity, behind your subcutaneous fat layer. It's impossible to measure on a regular scale. Even BMI can't accurately reflect its existence. Really accurate measurement of visceral fat. It's an abdominal CT scan or a professional body fat analyzer. So you may be being attacked by an enemy you cannot see, quietly hurt, but don't know. So where does visceral fat come from? Here's one of the most important hormones in your body, insulin. Think of insulin as a warehouse manager. Your blood sugar goes up every time you eat. The pancreas will rush out insulin, this administrator. Tell him to remove the excess glucose from the blood, carried into the cell, converted to energy use. If the energy is sufficient, the administrator will remove the excess glucose, converted to fat, saved for later use. Here's the thing. This admin has a particular preference. He especially likes to store fat around his abdominal organs. In particular, when you eat foods high in sugar and high in refined carbohydrates for a long time, insulin levels are persistently high. This administrator, it will keep moving to the visceral area. You're storing more fat. And it got even worse. When you maintain a high insulin level for a long time, Your cells will start responding to the instructions for insulin. Generate resistance, like an employee being repeatedly urged by the boss. Finally, choose to ignore. That's called insulin resistance. Insulin resistance causes the pancreas to secrete more insulin. To maintain blood sugar balance, it creates a vicious cycle. And one of the most immediate consequences of this cycle is the further accumulation of visceral fat. So the heart of the visceral fat problem. It's not just about eating too much. It's a problem of hormonal imbalance. It's an insulin signaling system, the manifestation of a problem. Understood this. You can understand, why do many people use fasting methods? From the outset, it went in the wrong direction. Now let's talk about fasting. The theoretical basis of fasting is based on science. When you stop eating, blood sugar starts to drop, insulin goes down, insulin warehouse management, no longer busy moving sugar into cells. The body will switch to another energy supply mode. Start using stored fat for energy. This process is called fat oxidation. It is the core logic of fasting and fat loss. That sounds perfect, right? Stop eating, insulin drop, the body burns fat, visceral fat disappears. But here, there is a crucial detail that is overlooked by most people: the order in which the body uses more fat. It's not what you think when your body chooses where to burn fat. It's not random. It's not fair either. It has its own priorities. The study found that in the early stages of short-term fasting, the body prefers to use subcutaneous fat. It's not visceral fat. This is because the subcutaneous fat has a richer blood supply. Lipolytic enzymes are more active, easier to use, although visceral fat has high metabolic activity, but it is protected by a more rigorous hormonal mechanism, especially the protection of cortisol, the stress hormone. Cortisol, think of it as the emergency commander in your body. When your body feels stressed, including the stress of hunger, cortisol goes up. It plays an important role, is to protect visceral fat from being easily broken down, because from an evolutionary perspective, visceral fat is the last line of defense to protect vital organs. The body doesn't give up easily. This explains a phenomenon that breaks a lot of people. Why after fasting? The thighs are thinner, the arms are thinner, and the face is thinner. But the belly just doesn't move because your body preferentially burns subcutaneous fat and protected by cortisol. Secure the strategic reserve of visceral fat. What's more troublesome is if your fasting regimen is too aggressive. For example, fasting time is too long, calorie restriction is too strict. At the same time, it bears greater life pressure. Cortisol stays high. It not only protects visceral fat, it also begins to break down muscle tissue for energy. Because muscles contain amino acids, it can be converted to glucose by a process called gluconeogenesis, powering the brain. This is the most terrifying result. You lose muscle, saves visceral fat, basal metabolic rate decreases, wait until you resume your normal diet, weight rebound, more visceral fat than before fasting. Path, this is not a theoretical hypothesis. This is backed up by real research data. A study published in the journal Cell Metabolism. Discover simple calorie restriction, if not accompanied by appropriate exercise while losing weight, can lead to significant loss of muscle mass and a decrease in muscle mass, will directly reduce resting metabolic rate, make it easier for the body to store fat after resuming a diet, especially visceral fat. Have you ever had that experience? Hard work fasting to lose weight. Weight down, but it didn't take long for it all to bounce back, even heavier than before. Tell me about your experience in the comment section. I'm sure many people have similar stories. So here's the problem. Since ordinary fasting, the effect on visceral fat is so limited, it might even backfire. It's scientifically proven. Ways to precisely combat visceral fat. What is it? The answer may surprise you. Not longer fasts. No, tougher caloric restrictions. It's not some magic fat-burning food. The true ultimate weapon is a combination strategy. And the core of this combination strategy is one thing you may have been underestimating: resistance training. This is called strength training. Don't rush to turn off the video. I know a lot of people hear about strength training. Think of the gym, those muscular guys holding big iron blocks. I don't think it has anything to do with me. But I'm going to tell you this: the effect of strength training on visceral fat. It has been repeatedly confirmed by many top scientific studies, and the way it attacks visceral fat, it's nothing like aerobics. Deeper, more durable, more accurate. Let's start at the beginning. Figure out strength training. How did you become the ultimate killer of visceral fat? When you do strength training, like squats, deadlifts, pull-ups, your muscle fibers are under tremendous mechanical tension. This tension causes minor damage to muscle fibers. Trigger the body's repair program. The repair process requires a lot of energy, and this repair process will take a long time. Even if you go home to sleep after training, your body is still running at high speed, consumes energy. Repair muscles. And this phenomenon has a technical name. It's called excess post-exercise oxygen consumption. The simple understanding is the post-combustion effect. Think of it as an engine. After you step on the accelerator, even if you release the accelerator, the engine will continue to maintain high temperatures, run for a while, continuous fuel consumption. The afterburn effect of strength training can last 24 to 72 hours, and the afterburn effect of aerobic exercise usually only lasts a few hours, but that's not the best part about strength training. Yeah, the real killer of strength training lies in. It can fundamentally change your body's metabolic setting. Your muscles are the biggest grapes in your body. Sugar consumer. Think of muscle as a giant sugar warehouse. It's a store of glycogen. When you need energy, you take glycogen out and you burn it. More muscle mass. The bigger the warehouse, the more sugar you can store. Glucose can be removed from the blood more efficiently. Insulin doesn't need to be taken frequently. Insulin levels naturally decrease. What does a decrease in insulin levels mean? Means the warehouse that keeps moving fat to the visceral area. The administrator can finally rest means the vicious cycle of insulin resistance is beginning to break. It means that your body starts to shift from fat storage mode, switch to fat burning mode. The following is from the Harvard School of Public Health, large study tracking more than 10,000 participants, found in controlling visceral fat. Strength training works wonders, better than just aerobic exercise. Research shows that the reduction in waist circumference of people who adhere to strength training. Waist circumference is an important indirect indicator of visceral fat than people who only did aerobic exercise. And here's the thing. Strength training increases muscle mass, will permanently increase your basal metabolic rate. Every kilogram of muscle gain, your body is at rest every day, will burn about 13 to 50 calorie extra. Doesn't sound like much, but over time, that's a huge metabolic advantage. Muscles are your body's most loyal metabolic factories, 24 hours a day. Even if you sleep lying down, he's also helping you burn calories. Now let's talk about that real ultimate combination, how to combine fasting with strength training. Let them have a synergy effect of 1 + 1 greater than 2. Precisely attack visceral fat. The key to this combination, not just fasting and exercising casually, it's about understanding how the two fit together. Hormonal level cooperation, create a pair of visceral fat, the most unfriendly metabolic environment. So let's start with this. We're going to talk about the right way to turn on fasting. Not all fasting is created equal. The best fasting mode for visceral fat, it's scientifically optimized for intermittent fasting, rather than extreme long-term eating. So far, the best documented model is the 16.8-point model. Eat every day in a continuous 8-hour window. No caloric food for the remaining 16 hours. The design of this time window has its precise physiological basis. During the first 12 hours of fasting, your body is mainly using up liver glycogen. This is the glycogen reserve that's stored in the liver. Liver glycogen, think of it as a little emergency battery backup. Limited capacity. It will be exhausted in about 12 hours. When this emergency battery runs out, the body really begins. Massive use of fat reserves. So the first 12 hours of fasting, we're not really fat burning yet. 16 hours of fasting. Here you are after depleting liver glycogen, extra 4 hours of fat burning time. These 4 hours are the key. And here's the thing. During fasting, your body, a series of events will occur. Hormonal changes conducive to attacking visceral fat. Insulin levels continue to decline. Growth hormone levels rise significantly. Growth hormone. Think of it as a body remodeling engineer. His two core tasks are protects muscles from being broken down and promote lipolysis, especially the breakdown of visceral fat. The study found that in a fasting state, the secretion of growth hormone can be increased to 5 times the normal state and even higher. This is fasting for visceral fat, the first truly effective attack window. But fasting alone is not enough. This is strength training, the best time to practice intervention. When you do strength training while fasting, or early in the feeding window after fasting is over, do strength training. your body will experience an extremely favorable metabolic state. Low insulin and high growth hormone environment brought about by fasting, muscle activation with strength training, and afterburn effect creates a double whammy for visceral fat. Specifically, and here's how it works. Strength training while fasting, your body needs a lot of energy to support muscle contraction due to blood glucose and insulin levels are both low. The body cannot rely on sugar for energy. It will more actively mobilize fatty acid oxidation, burning fat directly for energy, and in a high growth hormone environment, fast lipolytic enzyme activity of visceral fat will significantly increase. Visceral fat becomes more accessible. It's like fasting. Open the visceral fat safety lock a slit. The intense metabolic demands of strength training. Just kick the door open. Start mass extraction of visceral fat for energy. After training, enter the feeding window. You are getting enough protein and nutrients. The body begins to repair damaged muscle fibers. This repair process also requires a lot of energy. The nutrients in the blood at this time will be preferentially transported to muscle cells rather than storing it as fat, as long as the calorie intake in your eating window is reasonable, not too much. This repair process further increases muscle mass, increased basal metabolic rate, forming a positive cycle. But there's a very important detail here. It is a mistake that many people make in practice. Strength training during fasting. Strength and duration need to be adjusted. Perform high-intensity long-term surgery on an empty stomach. Strength training. If the body's glycogen reserves have been depleted and the rate at which fatty acids oxidize can't keep up with energy requirements, cortisol rises sharply. Start breaking down muscle protein for energy. This is not the outcome we want. So strength training during fasting, it is best to control it within 45 minutes, mainly medium intensity, focusing on multi-joint movements like squats, deadlifts, bench presses, rowing. These movements simultaneously activate a large number of muscle groups, generates maximum metabolic stimulation in the shortest possible time. Also avoid excessive cortisol elevations. After the training, inside the feeding window, it is essential to prioritize high-quality protein intake. Protein is the raw material for muscle repair. Think of it as bricks on a construction site. Not enough bricks. The best engineer can't build a building. Research proposal. 1.6 to 2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight per day is the optimal range to support muscle synthesis. Now let's talk. Another grossly underrated visceral fat killer, sleep. I know, you might think, what is the relationship between sleep and visceral fat? But hear me out, because it goes deeper than you think. University of Chicago research team did a classic experiment. They asked participants to limit their calories while one group gets enough sleep, the other group's sleep duration was reduced to 5.5 hours. It turned out that the sleep-deprived group lost a similar amount of weight, but up to 70% of that weight loss comes from muscle rather than fat, of the weight lost in the adequate sleep group. The proportion of fat is much higher than that of muscle. Here's why. Sleep is the main time window for growth hormone secretion. Your body is in deep sleep.